Good morning. Welcome to CTN Morning News. I'm Jaclyn St James, and today is October 16th, 2017. In today's news, a British man that was facing a 3-year jail sentence in Dubai for touching a man's hip could be home soon. Donald Trump is to address the conference of a recognized anti-LGBT hate group. Since the Harvey Weinstein scandal broke, several male actors have come out to share similar experiences where they felt powerless at the hands of powerful men in the industry. And Caitlyn Jenner has completely revoked her previous support for Donald Trump and his administration. All coming up next on CTN Morning News. In world news, the British man who was facing a possible 3-year jail sentence for touching another man's hip could be home soon. Jamie Heron, a 27-year-old electrician from Stirling, was arrested for public indecency after he touched another man in a bar, apparently to avoid spilling a drink. The alleged incident took place at the Rock Bottom Bar on July 15th. It is believed that Heron could face a 3-year sentence, but the man who he touched is reported to have dropped the complaint on learning the harshness of the sentence that the Briton was facing. The man's employer, Newman and Esser, said with a certain distance from the incident and the punishment to be expected for the suspect, our employee decided to withdraw the complaint despite the harassment having been confirmed by several witnesses. However, according to the typical laws for the country, this does not automatically result in the termination of the proceedings, as for example, very likely in England or Germany. The charge is due to be heard in court on October 22nd. Heron has already been fined, sentenced to a 30-day in prison, and will be deported for drinking alcohol and making a rude gesture. His lawyers have submitted an appeal. Heron is said to have admitted drinking alcohol but denied making the gesture. Pressure Group, detained in Dubai, has taken up Heron's cause. It describes itself as a non-for-profit organization formed to assist people who have become victims of injustice in the United Arab Emirates. Radha Sterling, CEO of Detained in Dubai, said that regarding the alcohol charges, of course he was drinking, everyone was. The entire enforcement system in the UAE needs an overhaul. The case has prompted 80 messages an hour of support and has prompted calls for a boycott of the UAE over its treatment of expats and tourists. Heron's parents, Graham and Patricia, recently spoke out about their worry for their son. His father, Graham, said that we can't believe that this is a nightmare. It has gone on for 3 months. Jamie is a good boy. He has never been a problem and never been in trouble. We are a very close family, and it is killing us to think of him spending even 3 nights in jail, let alone 3 years. Gay sex is illegal for men and women in the United Arab Emirates under Section 354 of the Federation's legal code. Punishment can include deportation, chemical castrations, fines, and prison time. While the legal code mentions the death penalty, it has not been implemented for same-sex relations in the country. In U.S. news, Donald Trump is to address the conference of a recognized anti-LGBT hate group. The U.S. president will speak at an event hosted by the Family Research Council, which is classed as a hate group for a strongly anti-LGBT agenda. Trump is to address the group's controversial Values Voters Summit in Washington, D.C. on Friday. White supremacists, far-right activists, and religious extremists will be among the event's attendees. Trump caused controversy for speaking at the event while a presidential candidate in 2016. However, no elected president has spoken at the summit, making Trump the first president to endorse the hate group. The speaking post for Trump comes after he announced a bombshell decision about discriminating against LGBT people. The Trump administration has issued a directive giving the go-ahead for religious businesses to discriminate against LGBT people. The federal government directive was issued today by Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who had been tasked by Trump to head a review of religious liberty protections, after pressure from the anti-LGBT lobbying groups. Speaking alongside Trump at the summit will be former Duck Dynasty star Phil Robertson, who made shocking comments that he wants to rid the earth of wicked gays. And he's not the only anti-gay extremist to speak alongside the 45th president. Alabama Senator candidate Roy Moore, who has said he doesn't know whether or not gays and lesbians should be put to death, will also be addressing the event. Moore, now backed by Trump, was recently removed as a state Supreme Court justice for instructing state employees to ignore the U.S. Supreme Court ruling in favor of marriage equality. In addition, Moore also has ties to an extremist pastor who has called for gay people to be put to death. The Southern Poverty Law Center lists FRC as an extremist group with an anti-LGBT ideology. It's Our Own website in 2016 said, Family Research Council believes that homosexual conduct is harmful to the persons who engage in it and to society at large and can never be affirmed. It is by definition unnatural and as such is associated with negative physical and psychological health effects. Steve Scalise, the House Majority Whip, is also set to speak. 4 months ago, Republican Congressman Steve Scalise had his life saved by a heroic lesbian police officer. Now fully recovered from the attack, one of Scalise's first actions of his return to action will be to give a speech to the Family Research Council next week. Tony Perkins, the FRC president, said that Scalise's return to health was not down to the brave actions of a lesbian police officer, but an answer to prayer. His fighting spirit in overcoming the odds and a source of inspiration for those who are fighting for the heart and soul of our nature and our culture. I look forward to welcoming my friend and former colleague back to the values voter stage. Perkins once speculated that flooding was God's punishment for homosexuals. However, when his own home was destroyed in what he called a flood of near biblical proportions, the homophobic pastor insisted it happened because of God's love. In entertainment news, since the Harvey Weinstein scandal broke just over a week ago in the New York Times, many actors including Angelina Jolie, Gwyneth Paltrow, Cara Delevingne, and Rose have claimed they also experienced sexual harassment and assault at the hands of film executives. Many, including Meryl Streep, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Barack Obama, have expressed support for the women, and it has opened up debate about the insidious issue around sexual abuse in Hollywood. A number of men have also come forward to share similar experiences where they felt powerless at the hands of powerful men in the industry. Terry Crews, James Van Der Beek, and Michael Gaston have all spoken up about incidents they endured, hoping to show support and shed light on why victims so often feel unable to come forward. Although the 6'3" former American football player would be seen as many as an unlikely victim, Crews explained in a series of tweets on Tuesday that anyone can be a target of harassment. Crews described how he was groped by a Hollywood executive last year and felt that he couldn't do anything because of the man's position. He said he knew that if he fought back, he would suffer for it, imagining headlines reading, 240 pounds black man stomps out Hollywood honcho, and that he didn't want to be ostracized from the industry. He said this experience made him absolutely understand why women had chosen to keep quiet about their abuse, knowing that they would likely be dismissed and it could have a huge negative impact on their career. To the casualties of this behavior, you are not alone, he said. Hopefully, me coming forward with my story will deter a predator and encourage someone who feels hopeless. James Van Der Beek, former Dawson's Creek star, also shared a similar story. I've had my ass groped by older, powerful men. I've had them corner me in inappropriate sexual conversations when I was much younger. He made clear how important it was not to underestimate the strength of shame and power in these situations. Prison Break's Michael Gaston said that as he tweeted his experience, my heart is pounding and my hands are shaking. He said he was inappropriately grabbed by a powerful theater director and despite it being in front of witnesses, felt powerless to say anything. Many pointed out how important it was to acknowledge that men also experience these abuses of power. Although the case is still unfolding, there is hope that many mark a turning point in changing the culture of silence both within Hollywood and throughout society. In trans news, Caitlyn Jenner has completely revoked her previous support for Donald Trump and his administration, and not before time. Last week, she slammed Trump's attacks on trans people as a disgrace, but stopped short of calling on others to oppose his administration. This was after the Trump administration rolled back civil rights protections for transgender employees and went to court to defend its plan to ban transgender people from the military. This week, Trump became the first sitting president to address the conference of a recognized anti-LGBT hate group, the Family Research Council. While at the conference, which handed out gift bags containing a pamphlet warning about the health hazards of homosexuality, he said homophobes would no longer be silenced. He also praised a bombshell directive also from this week that gave the go-ahead for religious businesses to discriminate against LGBT people. The ruling effectively permits anti-LGBT discrimination against the U.S. This seems to have been enough to finally push the reality star to fully oppose Trump's administration and call on others to do the same. In an interview with Los Angeles station KABC-TV, the former Olympian admitted, "I was hoping for a lot better than this. And I was somewhat optimistic, and I thought, this guy is going to be okay. He has totally disappointed me." And the Republican who had previously said that Trump's approach to LGBT rights doesn't make me regret my vote yet, finally leant into completely condemning the president. They're going to be around for the next almost 4 years. We just all have to gather together as a community and fight what they are doing. She said that right now they are by far the worst administration ever towards the LGBT community and particularly the trans community. Jenner ignored warnings from her transgender friends and supported Donald Trump and Mike Pence last year, insisting that she would not be a single-issue voter and claiming that she could help influence the GOP on LGBT rights. In just 9 months since he took office, the Trump-Pence administration has worked solidly to roll back equality for trans people. As well as moving to ban trans people from serving in the military, Trump also revoked President Barack Obama's guidance protecting transgender students in public schools just a month after taking office. Jenner signaled her frustrations with the president over his treatment of trans people last week on Twitter. Trump's administration latest in a string of attacks on trans people, trans students, trans service members, and now employment protections for trans workers. This systematic gutting of non-discrimination protections for trans people is a disgrace. Her comments sparked a collective "we told you so" from the LGBT rights advocates who spent months before the election pointing out the dangers of a Trump-Pence administration for equality. And her U-turn was completed this week. Well, this wraps up this week's news from CTN News from the gay, sunny city of Wilton Manors. I'm Jaclyn St James. Have a great week.